By the fourth day, the courtroom camera started acting up like it was stuttering or something. A glitchy overlay crawled across the screen, eating up the judge's gavel and the plaintiff's shaking hands for a second. It wasn't just some random tech hiccup, though. It was a warning sign, a flashing neon brace yourself for the next 6 hours of this public access to justice circus. Then the judge called the bench, his voice cutting through the static like a knife. "We'll proceed with the preliminary hearing in United States v. Tyler Robinson," he said. This case had gone from a quiet little blip on the district docket to front-page news overnight. A top political fixer-up against a mess of campaign finance allegations, it was the kind of drama that had cable news chyrons in a frenzy. Time dragged on like a bad road trip. Witness after witness shuffled up to the stand, lawyers rustled papers like they were shuffling a deck of cards, and the live feed kept flickering between the prosecutor's spiel and the semi-transparent ticker blaring procedural rules in font size 6. The judicial conference had rolled out these ticker guidelines recently, claiming they'd help viewers keep up. Instead, they turned the screen into a confusing word salad that no one had time to digest. As the hours bled together, the audience, both the folks packed into the gallery and the millions glued to their screens, started to wonder the same thing. How long can a trial stay open to the public before the whole broadcasting thing backfires? It hung over the courtroom like a storm cloud, this quiet suspicion that maybe the marathon hearing was doing more harm than good to the transparency it was supposed to uphold. The overhead lights were brutal, like someone had aimed a spotlight at the prosecutor's evidence folder. The polished wood gleamed, throwing sharp shadows everywhere. Some reporter in the back muttered into a mic, "If this keeps dragging on, we're gonna lose the plot of this whole damn story." Outside, a protest sign flapped in the breeze, bold letters screaming justice, not spectacle. Inside, the judge's gavel came down twice, thud, thud, each strike like a drumbeat for the tension stretching tighter than a bowstring. The need to dig up every fact clashed with the audience's patience wearing thinner than a sheet of paper. The courtroom's digital clock crawled past 12:30 p.m., but the real countdown was the audience's fading focus. Every new overlay that obscured a witness's face was another nail in the coffin of clarity. I've spent the last decade covering federal trials, watching how the media's little tweaks can twist the public's take on things. The official docket for this hearing, pulled from Pacer, shows it kicked off at 9:00 a.m. Sharp and kept going way past the 4-hour mark. Source: the Justice Department's press release called it a deep dive into extensive testimony and documentary evidence that could spill into multiple days. Source: the Judicial Conference's new broadcast overlay rules were supposed to boost viewer comprehension while keeping courtroom decorum intact. But a study in some academic journal found that too many flashing graphics on screen actually make it harder to remember key testimony. Source: the New York Times dug into this whole mess with their big investigation on high-profile political trials, like that Charlie Kirk case. They called out how broadcasters often pick visual drama over substantive clarity, and now that exact problem was playing out in Robinson's never-ending hearing. Source: here's the kicker: as this thing drags on, we're not just wasting time, we're risking trust. If the public can't follow what's happening, the verdict's legitimacy takes a hit. And suddenly the whole system starts looking less like justice and more like a rigged sideshow. The camera's flicker returned, but this time it revealed a faint, ghostly outline of the courtroom's old wooden benches, like a flashback to the days when hearings were actually seen in person, not through some layered digital fog. Every objection about the overlay's placement was a tiny turf war over who got to control the screen. Lawyers were practically spitting nails, arguing that shoving the ticker into the lower third messed with the federal rules of evidence's demand for clear and unobstructed evidence displays. Source: in the gallery, some senior attorney leaned over to a colleague and muttered, "If we can't even see the witness, how the hell are we supposed to judge their testimony?" This marathon isn't just about time. It's a gut check for the country's faith in open courtrooms. The next hour's gonna decide if these overlays become a bridge to understanding or just another wall keeping the public locked out. This is a documentary series produced by Dark. So the fourth day of Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing kicked off with a bunch of witness names on the docket, but plot twist: the courtroom hit some real snags right out of the gate. According to the official docket notes, they called up the first witness, a forensic analyst, right on schedule, but then the audio crapped out. Like, completely. So the judge had to hit pause while the tech crew scrambled to fix it. Meanwhile, the next witness, a family member of the victim, got stuck cooling their heels in a waiting room until the feed was back online. The Pacer transcript is wild. It's got page after page of the prosecutor yelling objection, technical issue every few minutes, followed by a note that the judge would resume after troubleshooting. Those little breaks added up, and suddenly the whole day's timeline was shot. The DOJ had actually put out a press release promising a smooth, uninterrupted hearing for the preliminary phase, so yeah, that definitely didn't age well. Source: The audio fiasco dragged on, and the defense team saw an opening literally. They filed a motion about that lower third graphic popping up on the live broadcast. You know, the one that slaps a witness's name, job title, and a quick key points summary on screen. It's all part of the Judicial Conference's broadcast guidelines, which say the graphics should enhance public understanding without compromising the integrity of the proceeding. Source. The defense wasn't having it, though. They argued that the graphic, while totally well-meaning, could accidentally tilt the jury's perception before they even heard a word. In a full-on shouting match caught in the Day 4 transcript, the defense attorney laid into the judge, "Your Honor, the color scheme in those little animations, they're pulling eyes away from the witness's face. Jurors might form opinions before they've even heard the whole story." The prosecutor fired back, calling the overlay just a neutral info box, and cited the same judicial conference rules as their defense. Legal scholars have been chewing on this for years. How much transparency is too much when you're broadcasting trials? The New York Times dug into it with their piece on media strategies in high-profile political cases. Charlie Kirk's trial was one of them, and basically said that visual bells and whistles can steal the spotlight, making the real dialogue in the courtroom feel like background noise. Source. That rings true with a legit study on how people process court broadcasts. Turns out, if you cram too much stuff on screen, viewers retain up to 30% less of what's actually being said, especially when flashy graphics are fighting for attention alongside the witness's expressions. The researchers say to keep it simple, just the bare-bones ID stuff, if the goal's to keep jurors locked in on the spoken evidence. Source. Back in the courtroom, the tech crew finally got the audio working again, but the damage was done. The forensic analyst's testimony restarted, but now under totally different sound conditions, and the room's ambient noise spiked as everyone adjusted to the sudden silence. The transcripts littered with continuance entries, each one noting the resumption of witness after technical delay. When the family member finally took the stand, the overlay glitched for half a second, name in bold, then a scrolling translucent bar with the victim's background summary. The defense piped up again, repeating their earlier gripes, and the judge just cut them off with a sharp sustained, then let the graphic keep going. It's like they were trying to straddle this impossible line, give the public info but don't let the bells and whistles muck up the search for the truth. The whole day felt less like a hearing and more like a marathon with a bunch of unnecessary water breaks. Every little hiccup, a mic cutting out, a video feed lagging, an overlay hiccuping added a few extra minutes here and there. The DOJ had pitched this as a compact 8-session hearing, but when you look at the day's docket, it's just page after page of adjourned for technical reasons. Shows how the tiniest logistical hiccups can stretch a trial's public face way past its promise. Source. And yeah, it left its mark on the jurors. They'd been told to watch the live broadcast as a reference, but instead they got a visual roller coaster, graphics popping up, audio cutting out, and the research warns that shit can fragment attention. Viewers end up leaning on visual shortcuts instead of digging into the nuanced testimony. Source. As the final minutes ticked down, the court clerk called for a final technical check before they shut it all down. The judge, nodding to all the day's mess-ups, told everyone straight up that the integrity of the process remains paramount, even as we navigate the logistical challenges of modern courtroom broadcasting. That line's straight out of the Pacer transcript, and it summed up the whole weird day. We want transparency, but transparency's gotta cost glitches, delays, distractions that can twist the message. When Day 4 finally wrapped, the hearing wasn't just running late, it had exposed a deeper truth. The whole process isn't just about following procedure, it's also about the visual language that greets the public. The DOJ's press release says tomorrow's agenda will revisit the witness list, but the real question's still hanging out there. How do you give people clear, accessible info without letting the tools that deliver it accidentally distort the truth instead? The courtroom's overhead lights dim, casting a subtle gloom. The screens around the room flicker, then go dark. The familiar lower third overlay, the one that's been feeding viewers sanitized snippets of testimony for 3 days, vanishes. It happens in an instant, no warning, no scrolling disclaimer. One moment the feed is scrubbed clean, the next raw, unfiltered reality. The judge's gavel doesn't even pause, but the room does. Even the stenographer's fingers freeze mid-type. The judge's voice cuts through the silence. The overlay is removed effective immediately. Source: official docket for United States v. Tyler Robinson, Day 4 hearing transcript. The image on every device in the gallery, phones, tablets, live feeds, shifts. What was a polished news crawl becomes a live camera feed. A witness's hands trembling, a lawyer's pen hovering over a yellow legal pad, the court clerk's face half in shadow. No more green screen summaries, no more time-stamped highlights, just the truth stripped down and unvarnished. This isn't a technical glitch, it's a deliberate rupture. Then the admission lands like a thunderclap. The prosecutor stands. His voice is steady, but his jaw tightens. "Your Honor, in the interest of full transparency." He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to, the judge interrupts. The record will reflect the hearing concluded at 4:07 p.m., not 4:37 p.m. as previously stated in the broadcast summary. Source: press release announcing the schedule and scope of the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing. 14 minutes, that's how much time was shaved off the official record. 14 minutes of testimony that never made it into the sanitized feed. 14 minutes that could have changed how the public saw the case. Beat text pop, the revelation isn't just timing, it's intent. The overlay wasn't just hiding words, it was manipulating perception. Every time it flashed court recess for lunch, every time it cut to a smiling juror during a heated exchange, it was shaping what viewers believed they were seeing. And for 4 hours on day 4, that feed was alive. Beat visual, now the court speaks. The judge doesn't just reverse one decision, he rewrites the rules for everyone watching. Effective immediately, he declares, all broadcast feeds in this jurisdiction will default to raw, unedited camera feeds during active testimony. Source: Guidelines on Courtroom Broadcast Overlays issued by the Judicial Conference of the United States. No overlays, no time stamps, no curated highlights, just the courtroom as it is. Beat tonal, the ripple effect is immediate. Legal analysts scramble to recalibrate. Defense teams review footage for inconsistencies. Prosecutors brace for scrutiny. The public, they finally see what they were never meant to see: the hesitation in a witness's voice, the nervous tap of a foot, the unguarded glance between attorneys. Beat zoom, this isn't about speed or efficiency, it's about power. Who controls the narrative? Who decides what the public is allowed to know? For years, the answer was the same: the court's broadcast feed. Now that control is gone. Beat text pop, the new standard isn't just transparency, it's surrender. The court has yielded its monopoly on perception, and once that's gone, there's no putting it back. The screen stays raw, the truth stays exposed, and the trial, it's no longer just a hearing, it's a reckoning. Day 4 of the Robinson hearing hit the screens like a storm, everyone talking at once, but nobody listening. The lower third tickers kept scrolling, the fact-check banners popped up like jack-in-the-boxes, and the witness bios just wouldn't quit. It wasn't testimony anymore, it was a free-for-all where pixels were throwing punches. Open justice is supposed to mean clear justice, not a circus where clarity gets lost in the chaos. This isn't some fluke either. Even the Judicial Conference calls these broadcast overlays a recipe for visual clutter, yet they still show up in cases that make headlines. Source: Guidelines on Courtroom Broadcast Overlays issued by the Judicial Conference of the United States. And it's not just ugly. When screens get too busy, people stop absorbing the facts. Source: Study on Viewer Comprehension and Visual Clutter in Televised Court Proceedings. Courts need to treat their media presence like a scalpel, not a blender, sharp, controlled, and never drowning out the real story. The bigger picture: this mess affects more than one trial. Look at how political trials handle the cameras, the way their broadcast can make or break public trust. Source: Article analyzing the media strategies used in high-profile political trials, including the Charlie Kirk case. When those flashy overlays take over, the trial itself becomes background noise, and that's a slippery slope for democracy. So here's the million-dollar question: how do courts keep things cutting edge without losing the plot? Are these broadcast tools working for us or just feeding the algorithm? Chime in down below, we're all ears. And if you're itching for more on how tech's rewriting courtroom rules, smash that subscribe button. Cause justice isn't just what happens inside those four walls, it's what the whole world actually sees.